Okay, awesome. Give me one sec. I'm just gonna set up my background and then I'm gonna share my screen.
You having for dinner today?
What is it? What does he say? Ribs and something? It's my favorite photo in the world. Okay. I assume you can see my slide here, right?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
perfect. Okay, well, hi everybody. My name is Jeff. Like Joe said, I'm a product designer by trade. Most recently, I was at a company called Wealth but I left last year to start my own company. It's great to be here. First of all, Demi and Ina, I loved the presentation. Listening to you guys talk about your design process and seeing like how beautifully designed your design review like screen is. That's the stuff that like really makes me miss working with my fellow designers at Wealth. So, but great presentation. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so let's start. This talk is called Good Work. This is probably a little bit less designy than maybe some of the other talks, but you know, at a high level, I kind of wanted to talk about, you know, what it means to be doing good work, kind of like uppercase G good work. So work that is good for the world, good for society, and moves, you know, the world forward in a direction that we want. So first, a little bit of background about me. I was born in South Korea. I grew up in Edmonton because we moved to Canada when I was young. Liked a lot of stuff like music and design when it came to the arts, but also really liked technology, like math, computers. I got started in design by making really bad stuff to put on Tumblr. Like I would put quotes on stock photos and get a lot of notes for those. And then I really, you know, just really like the idea of like creating stuff on my computer and being able to share it with the world. And so I went to U of T, University of Toronto, for computer science. My first choice was actually Waterloo. So it's funny to be speaking with folks from Waterloo. When I told my mom that I was giving this presentation, she, I think, was proud that I finally have some connection to Waterloo now. But yeah, I went to U of T for computer science, went to a couple classes, but really felt like computer science wasn't for me. I just loved design and just how close to the end user I was able to be when it came to designing interfaces or anything like that. And so I dropped out after first year and started working at a bunch of tech startups in Toronto. So I worked at companies like 500px, this education tech company called One Class, and like I said, most recently, I was at Wealth. Last year, I founded my company with a friend of mine called Give. The company is called Give. My friend's name is not Give. And the story about Give is that, you know, when I was at Wealth, I saw the power of great design, great brand, and simple technology that was applied to something super boring and not interesting at all, which is investing. And through all of those things, they made it so cool and like something that people wanted to use. And you know, my friends were talking about Wealth, and I'm like, crazy, like people are talking about like, you know, passive investing and ETFs, and like it was just mind-boggling. And when, on a personal note, I wanted to start giving to charity because I felt like there was this dissonance between how much I cared about the issues that were happening in the world, but I wasn't actually doing anything about it other than maybe like retweeting stuff on Twitter and thinking that was it. So I was like, okay, how do I close that gap? And so I wanted to start giving to charity, but I wanted to apply a ton of rigor and make sure that, you know, the charity that I was giving to was a good charity. And then that led me down a path of like, how do you measure a charity? What makes a good charity? And so we got together as a team. We brought on a head of research that does impact analysis for charities. And what we did was we took kind of 10 causes, and through our research methodology, basically took the list of thousands and thousands of charities in Toronto. We started in Toronto. And boiled it down to anywhere between like 3 and 5 charities per fund. And these are the charities that we believe will make the biggest impact with your donation. So we had these funds and we packaged them up into an experience that we, you know, hopefully feel like it's one of the most personal ways to give. It asks you about, the causes that that you're passionate about, and we build you a portfolio based on how you answer those questions with these charities. And then you choose a monthly giving amount. And then every month we take that and we spread it amongst the charities, cut you a tax receipt. So we're really trying to apply that, Wealth Simple approach to philanthropy and to giving. And what I love most about building Give is the impact that I get to have on my community by empowering people, especially young people who have never given before, have only given to fundraisers that their friends are doing, getting them to be involved and donate to highly effective charities. So that's really the most fulfilling part about the work that we're doing at Give. But this talk isn't really about Give, and later on I'm happy to answer any questions about the company or the product, but it's about good work. And so I love doing good work. Like I said, big part of why I love working on Give is how good it is and how it's good for the world, I think, at least. But throughout my career, it's not like I felt like I was doing work that wasn't moving the world forward. I've always felt like I was doing good work. If I look back at 500px, during team meetings, we'd be like, we're helping photographers earn a living. And it's true, and that is good. But at every company that I've worked at, there's always been this notion of like, we're doing good for the world. But as I, got really involved in the nonprofit space and building a social enterprise of my own, I started thinking maybe this notion of a good company, isn't really like equal. Like maybe when people say that they're good, just because they aren't doing a net negative to the world, it doesn't mean that they're all equally good. And so this is a kind of a culmination of a long time of thinking about what it means to do good work. And so let me start with hopefully a statement that is true. And I hope everybody feels this way, but I think we all want to do good. I hope we're all passionate about doing good work, work that improves the lives of people and leave the world a better place than we found it. But in the era of performative activism, greenwashing, and the cult of like mission-driven companies, it can be hard to measure and understand where and how to do good. So I'm going to share kind of what I've learned about doing good work, and I think about it in three parts. First is work, the second is money, and the third is the self. So let's start with work. So I think designers are especially well positioned to make an outsized impact through their work. And the reason for this is that our work has no marginal cost of replication. So what does this mean? So say you work at a coffee shop. To serve one person, the work required to serve that one person is X. So to serve the next person, the work required is, again, X. To serve 10 more people, it's 10X. But if you're a designer or anyone who works in technology, we benefit from the fact that there's no marginal cost of replication for the code or the designs that we write. So to serve one user, the work required is X, but to serve the next person or the next million people, the work required, the marginal work required is close to zero. So this is incredibly powerful because this means that you as a designer or you as a product manager or a software engineer, you don't need millions of dollars or thousands of employees to improve the lives of many people. However, this is a privilege that we must recognize as tech workers. And by that same logic, we don't need millions of dollars or thousands of employees to harm the lives of many. So with this power in mind, how do we use it for good? How do we enter the industry and make sure that we do work that's positive for the world throughout our careers? So obviously, we should work at good companies, right? So what is a good company? So what I want to do is a little exercise. Can I see, how do I see the chat?
I think you have to like hover over your Zoom window and then it'll kind of like pop up. It's not like the best designed.
Chat, there we go, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna show you some companies and you're gonna just fire out from the chat whether you think it's a good company or not. And I will preface this by saying maybe there's a company on here that you may have worked at or you want to work at or you currently work at. And I don't mean to offend. I just want to get a sense of, where do we feel like these companies maybe lie on a moral or ethical spectrum. So here we go. Charity water, good company or bad company? Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I would agree. Charity Water is a great charity in the US that provides clean drinking water to people in need. Super transparent, super tech forward, great company. Okay, how about Coca-Cola? Bad. Okay. Okay, so this is the calibration exercise. So I tried to pick like the two sort of polar opposite companies. So I'm pretty sure we're on the same page. May I just say this logo is like so nice. Like they haven't had to change it and it just looks so beautiful. But they're still a bad company. Okay, now that we're calibrated, how about Kickstarter? Good, but maybe bad. Good, question mark. Bad, good. Okay, interesting. Medium, semi-good, good enough. I think that's a good one. Good enough. Okay, Allbirds. This is a social enterprise based in the US. So they're a B Corp. They make shoes, but I guess they're like environmentally friendly. Allbirds feel good, but they look so bad. I agree. But we're talking about the moral sort of spectrum of this company. Okay, Shopify. Good. Yeah. Not great. Okay. I think most people think it's good. I also think it's good. Okay, let's go into the hard ones. Amazon. Okay. Big bad. Lots of bad. Okay. Last one. Uber. Bad, bad, bad. Skynet. Okay, cool. That's very interesting. Thank you for participating. So, I think the challenge is that all of these companies, if you imagine yourself of day one working at these companies, they're probably going to tell you like, oh, like we're doing this for the world. We're this is our mission. And they're using these like big words, and they're going to make you feel like you're working at a good place, right? And so every company is going to tell you that they're good. So that doesn't really help us in figuring out, whether this company is a good company or not. So we're going to play, not play a game, but go through this exercise. So here's a mission statement, verbatim, of a company. Our purpose is reimagining energy for people and our planet. Anybody guess what this company is? Pretty noble. I think is it Tesla? Yep, somebody guessed Tesla. Gregorio is right. This is British Petroleum. So I would say they are reimagining the oil spills for the planet. But this mission is like pretty detached from in reality, where they stand ethically. This is the second and the only other one. Our mission is to help our users, the people doing the hard work on complex real world problems. Wow, very cool, very noble, helping people work on hard problems. Jocelyn is right. Palantir, the company that helped ICE track down and deport undocumented immigrants in the US, which I guess is a complex real world problem. So the takeaway here is that, when recruiters reach out to you and, if you're graduating from Waterloo in technology, I'm sure you're going to be bombarded with a lot of recruiter emails, but they're going to tell you that they are mission driven, that they care about the world and the people, but you have to look beyond their mission statement, because in most cases it's bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but in most cases it's bullshit. So how do we determine the goodness of a company? There's unfortunately no sort of like silver bullet answer, but the way that I think about it is in three parts. So the first is implicit versus explicit good. So it kind of goes back to my kind of career history. I think if you look at a company like 500px, I think they are good. They do work. They create products that people use, and I guess it kind of helps their lives. And a lot of photographers have benefited quite a bit from 500px. But like, do they serve solely to do good? Do they exist to do good? And I would say no, like they end up doing good as a byproduct of their core purpose. On the flip side, you think about a charity and, they are, legally required to be solely existing for the purposes of doing good. And so I think the obsession with mission-driven companies, especially recently, and I can go on and on about how venture capital has kind of made people, forced companies to position themselves as much bigger and philosophical than they really are. But every company is now positioning themselves as being explicitly good. So you need to be able to discern between whether they're explicitly good or implicitly good, or maybe not good at all. So ask yourself whether their mission is really tightly integrated with their products and services, or if it seems like somebody looked at the products and services and thought, yeah, I guess this could be the mission. This would look really nice on our about page. So that's implicit versus explicit good. Second is there is no such thing as net positive. I hear this argument a lot. People say, yeah, this company's work, has maybe destroyed the youth, has created a mental health crisis. But if you think about the positives, like, can we imagine a world before this company? Not naming the company, but I think maybe you can imagine which one. And there's a lot of companies that I think people use this argument for. But the problem with this framing is that, yes, like these companies have incredible positive impacts, but also incredible negative impacts. But to put the two together as if they're two numbers on a balance sheet and subtract them and do this like math is not how you're supposed to think about these issues. These arguments are distractions for you to not care about the negative impacts this company might have. To give you an example, fossil fuels, probably great for the world. We wouldn't have computers, we wouldn't have technology, we wouldn't have the transportation without fossil fuels. But is anybody debating whether that fossil fuels are a net good, so we shouldn't care about climate change and global warming? Like we need to separate the two things and ignore the temptation to balance their negative actions or justify their negative actions again with their positives. So look at the harmful effects that this company might have critically. And it's not to say that every company is perfect, because I don't think any company is perfect, but look at their harmful effects critically and decide whether it's something that you should accept as a potential employee. The last one is beware the reputation laundering. So I've been in the charity world for a little bit, and one of the kind of the dark sides to philanthropy is that it often acts as a vehicle for companies to launder their reputation. So if you look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they donate billions of dollars to homeless shelters, affordable housing projects, and people like clap. Some people say like, oh, that's a percentage of whatever, but billions of dollars going to charity. That's on paper, that's great. And yes, philanthropy is a good thing. That money will make a positive impact for sure. But we need to think about, is he solving a problem or trying to solve a problem that he created himself? So Amazon pays no federal taxes on billions of dollars in income, taxes that probably would have gone to fund programs that probably would have prevented these problems from existing in the first place. So yes, celebrate good corporate social responsibility, celebrate companies that are giving to charities. When it came to the Black Lives Matter protests, congratulate companies that are, stepping up and giving money, but think about whether that is acting as a reputational cover for their harmful effects on society. So I told you a lot of, sad, sort of depressing things. So then should everybody in this call just go work at a charity? And I'm going to ruin that for you too, because, charities, yes, they are predominantly created to do good in the world, but let's set aside the fact that charities can be problematic. And there is a certain Canadian charity that the Prime Minister testified regarding today. But going to work at a charity isn't necessarily the best way to maximize your impact. So this takes me to my second point, which is money. So when people talk about making a difference, most people talk about dedicating their career to working at a charity or starting a charity or a social enterprise. But in some ways, the best way to make a difference is with money. And it doesn't sound inspirational, It doesn't sound like boots on the ground work, but it really works. And this is called earning to give. So there's a book that really inspired a lot of the work that we do at Give. It's called "Doing Good Better" by William McCaskill. And there's a last slide that I have that has that book. So there's a guy named Greg. This is the only Greg that I could think about. So here's Greg. He's a doctor based in the UK. He's passionate about making the world a better place, and he has two career paths that he's looking down on. First is he goes, works with an NGO in a developing country. He earns a living wage, so basically stuff just covers expenses. And through his work, he is able to save 4 lives a year. And there's a metric called QALYs, that's quality adjusted life years. It's what economists use to basically measure how many lives you've saved. So, it's not that this person is working on 4 people a year, it's that in total, when you do the math, it works out to be about 4 lives a year or 150 QALYs. So this is great. He's able to save 4 lives a year. That's awesome. But he has a second option. He can work as a doctor in the UK. He can make 200K a year, which is awesome. He can save only 1 life a year because the health system in the UK is a lot better. The standard of living in the UK is a lot better. So he can only save 1 life a year. But if he donates just 10% of his income, so 20K a year, that put to the right charities can save 10 lives a year, 380 QALYs. So if you look at these side by side, option 1 is like the one that reads better. If he might be on a magazine cover with option 1. He probably doesn't have a chance of getting that on option 2. But if you really look at the impact you're able to have, in some ways you could argue that living a slightly more comfortable life, making a lot more money, but by giving a chunk of your money to charity and the right charities, you can empirically have better or bigger impact in the causes that you care about. And not only is there the quality comparison, but we need to think about what difference would have been made anyway. So let's say he took the job as a doctor in the UK. Somebody would have filled in as the doctor in the developing country. Or if they couldn't find any doctor to fill in that role, that money probably would have gone to medical supplies, anti-malarial nets, like whatever it may be. But if he took the job as the doctor in the developing country, then yes, somebody would have replaced him as the doctor in the UK making 200K a year. But would they have donated 10% of their income? They probably would have donated about 2% of their income, which is the average in the UK. So you have to think about, what would have happened if you didn't take the action that you're about to take. And so in this case, there's even a stronger argument for him to take option 2 because, somebody would have filled in for his spot anyways. So we have to recognize that your work is just one component of making an impact. And in some cases, it can make more sense for you to take a higher paying job at a non-impactful company if you direct a portion of your earnings to charity. So how to give. This, I can go on and on about this topic, but I'll quickly go through it, and it boils down to doing your research. So to provide a little background, charities are built on a system that lacks a feedback loop. If you buy a pair of headphones and you don't like it, you might go return it. You might write a bad review. You might not recommend it to your friends. And so there's this feedback loop. So the company does worse or they improve their product, etc. With charities, you donate money and you're just like kind of done with it. It does good. Like, I'm sure it's not doing good. But how much good does it do? How much more good does it do compared to a similar charity? So because there's no feedback loop and there's not a lot of data that's available, it's really hard to tell whether a charity is good or not. And to make matters worse, because charitable giving in Canada is about flat, it's a zero-sum game, which means every incremental dollar that a big charity like a Red Cross or a Sick Kids raises, that's $1 that is taken out of the rest of the charity's pool. So it's very advertising driven. There's not a lot of impact that's being considered when it comes to giving. So you should be looking at things like size, and you can get all of this information from the CRA. I will plug that if you go to withgive.com and go to our funds, you can see the charities that we've selected. You can also look at our research methodology about how we choose them. Charity Intelligence is also a really great resource for you to understand this information, but size, governance, and transparency, are they well organized? We know that this is a hot topic recently. Administrative overhead, which we shouldn't care about that much, but we still want to make sure that most of your dollar is going to go towards programming. Program effectiveness, which is super important, like what does it actually do? Need for funding, is this charity spending $1 million a year, but they sit on $50 million in the bank, which means your money's not going to be used for many years, and executive compensation, things like that. So when you take all of these things into consideration, and when you're doing it right, your donation might actually have a bigger impact than your work. So when you think about planning your career and want to do good, very important to think about how you can do good as somebody at a company, making sure that you choose the right company to work for, but also consider that you can go and, I don't know if I should call it a sellout, but if you want to go make big bank, like that's great, like you do it, like I encourage you, but consider that by directing a portion of your earnings to charity, you could make a huge impact, potentially a bigger impact than if you went and took a job at a charity itself. So lastly, let's talk about the self. So, there isn't a proper, right way to do good, and your plan to do good in the world has to be designed around you. And so you need to have an honest conversation with yourself about your values and beliefs. So which values are most important to you? Which values are you willing to compromise on? Which companies do you feel ethically compromised working at, even if it looks great on a resume? And why is that? And which of your underlying values are creating this friction? And do you seek fulfillment from on the ground work? Like, do you want to be volunteering? Or are you not a big volunteer person? You would rather donate your money rather than time. It's okay for this exercise to be uncomfortable. It's okay for this exercise to bring you shame. I think a lot of us, especially these days, are coming to more and more realizations about our privilege and about how our inactions, are frankly, unacceptable. But having this conversation with yourself is going to be really important when it comes to planning your career. And I'll take this back and say the reason that this exercise and everything that I talked about, thinking about these things, the reason that it's so important is that we in technology hold so much power. This industry, if we look at the last 10, 20 years, it really has fundamentally changed the way that we communicate with each other, the way that we work, the way that we earn, the way that we live. And so we must go about our careers with a clear sense of who we are, what we stand for, and in what direction we want to move this world forward. This is one of those things where I said the thing, hit next slide, and it just shows exactly what I said. So I'm going to do a quick recap because I might be going over time. So recognize that an outsized impact your work as a designer can have. Look beyond a company's mission statement. Net impact does not and should not matter. Don't be blinded by philanthropy that acts as cover up. There are other ways to do good outside your work. Your money may accomplish more than your work. Donate to highly effective charities. We can help with that if you're curious. Design a plan to do good around who you are and what you care about, and ask yourself hard questions about your values and beliefs. I also think I messed up these slides because I'm pretty sure, it went like that. So that's a presentation error. Okay, so last thing is I want to share 2 books that I think, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, you should consider reading. First is Doing Good Better by William McCaskill. It introduced me to the world of effective altruism and really taking an empirical look at what impact means. The second one is Winners Take All by Anand Giridharadas. He's done a lot of great speaking and writing about especially a lot of the philanthropy acting as cover-up. Highly recommend you listen to his podcasts or whatever interviews that he's done on podcasts, read his books, read his articles that he's guest authored. So yeah, I would recommend these 2 things. And that's it. I'd love to answer any questions. I don't know if I went over on time, but if you have questions, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Jeff. That was really, really good. I'm a little speechless. But the first question comes from Sabrina Pan, and you kind of mentioned it from a high level. But how do you really measure the impact of your donations when you're so detached from the cause you're donating towards?
Yeah. Yeah. So measurement of impact is like the hardest problem in charities right now. Um, Take a look at GiveWell. They've done a a lot of good work in doing that sort of impact calculation. We've started to do a lot of our analysis ourselves, what's called SROI, social return on investment. So we take a look at the outcome data, outcome reports that charities put out, and we look at, for example, if we look at a food bank, we look at how many pounds of food they're able to serve per dollar, and we measure those things, and we try to come up with a consistent metric that we can compare across charities. The answer is that it's very hard, and reporting is not consistent, and I think that's something that from a legislation perspective, I think could go a long way in terms of improving the transparency of charities, is getting charities to report a little bit more detail on their impact reporting. But yeah, unfortunately right now you have to do a lot of reading yourself and go through the PDFs that the charities put out, or look at a trusted source like Charity Intelligence or Give.
Yep, cool. Okay, so second question from Jeremy Kim. You talked about working in big tech before, but then you want to start your own company. With this in mind, I was wondering how nonprofits make money and become sustainable.
Yeah, not-for-profits and charities, they generally, operate based off of whether it's individual donations from individual donors or oftentimes from government grants. So yeah, it's really hard, and donations can swing wildly from year to year. So a lot of charities have to scale up and scale down their operations very quickly because it's quite unpredictable. I think as a tech company, you can probably look at what the next 5 years is going to look like in terms of revenue. With charities and nonprofits, they're not able to do that. And so yeah, they make money through whatever small revenue streams that they may have, but mostly through individual donors and corporate donors and government grants. And I will make a note, this is why giving on a monthly basis is so important to charities. Because if you give on a one-time, they can't really take that and predict what their next year is going to look like in terms of cash flow. But if you're giving on a monthly basis, they're able to project their income a little bit better and plan for projects and hire and all these things a little bit better. So that's a small shout out to recurring giving, which you can do on Give.
I dropped the link for Give in the chat.
Nice. Thank you.
A question from me, because I'm genuinely really curious. Has dropping out of school ever set you back? And what are things that worked out for you from dropping out, and what didn't work out for you?
Great question. Career-wise, mostly no. I will make a confession. 2 years ago, I had a final interview at Instagram, and it was abruptly canceled because I didn't have a degree and it was impossible for me to get a visa there. So that's really been the only material setback, is that I can't work in the US. I think literally every month that goes on, I'm thankful to be living and working in Canada. Yeah, I guess the positive is that I got to start working a little bit quicker, which when I was younger, I think I loved, and I was like, yeah, like I'm going fast. Like I love going fast. But I think the more I reflect on it, the more I would actually recommend people to stay in school. If you can't stay in school, if you don't want to, if you just really want to get out, go for it. But there's a lot of, intangible benefits that come out of being at school for 4 years, beyond a degree. It's a time where you get to figure out who you are, explore a lot of different things, surround yourself with a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. And you have like 30, 40, 50 years to work. You only have 4 years or however many to be in school. So I'd say take advantage of that. That's probably the only sort of negative, that and the visa situation.
All right. So final question from Rachel Long, just because we're a bit over time. Do you have
Sorry.
any suggested resources to estimate how much good a prospective employer does?
Oof. Um, I do not. Um, I wish there was. And I mean, these things are all subjective, right? So um, I would say, like, obviously, baseline, are there controversies that this company is riddled in? Go to their Wikipedia page. Is there a section called controversies? Um, but yeah, like, look at the news. Thankfully, we have a culture of, or we're starting to have more of a culture of calling companies out for things that they're not doing well. And so I hope that all companies that may have something that they didn't do so well, it's reported on, or people are tweeting about it. So yeah, I think a lot of times it's that, and also, like, have a conversation with your friends. Like, there might be stuff that they know about certain companies through their experiences there, or their friends' experiences there, that you may not have knowledge of, or especially in early stage startups, those things might not get reported on. So talk to people. I think people are like to be pretty honest about their experiences at companies. I know I am, when people ask me about my time at any of the companies that I've worked at. So yeah, talk to friends, read the news, check their Wikipedia page, search them up on Twitter, see what people are saying about them.
Great, cool. Thank you so much, Jeff. Definitely learned a lot from your talk.